if I was wrong on one thing going into this free agency process, it was I did not believe, and based on all the information I had at the time, I did not foresee Russell Wilson ending up in Pittsburgh because the Steelers' mindset going into the offseason, and Mike Tomlin said it after the season, was Kenny Pickett was QB1, and they were going to bring in somebody to push him. And when they hired Arthur Smith, that was with the idea, they're going to be a run-first offense. They're going to pound it with Najee Harris and company and Jaylen Warren. And, that's going to be a great fit for Kenny Pickett. But when Russell Wilson became available for the minimum, which took a little bit because his agent was trying to negotiate a massive player option for 2025 before everybody said no to that. But when he became available for the minimum, I know that it intrigued Mike Tomlin in particular, that this is a rare opportunity to get a guy who has won at the highest level. He's a Super Bowl champion. He, for whatever people are going to say about Russell Wilson, he does work really hard, and he is uniquely wired and dialed in all the time. Mike Tomlin really liked that idea. So then you had the conversations that were taking place between Mike Tomlin and Kenny Pickett. And what Tomlin, my understanding is, had expressed to Pickett was no matter what they did, if they got Russell Wilson, which didn't even look like they were necessarily going to, but if they got him, it would be a competition. Then Kenny Pickett, like everybody else, finds out on social media because Russell Wilson insisted that he needed to break it in the hype video on Instagram. So Kenny Pickett, like everyone else, finds out Russell Wilson's going to the Steelers on Instagram or Twitter or wherever it was, talks to Mike Tomlin the next morning. Mike Tomlin says, Russ is in the pole position. He's going to get the first reps out of the gate. And Pickett at that point said, oh, well, then, that's not what we talked about. I want to trade. So they find a landing spot for him. He goes to Philadelphia. Then because of that trade and the Mac Jones trade and the Sam Howell trade, the price had kind of settled for these young quarterbacks in trades where the Bears early on thought maybe we can get a second-round pick, if not a first, for Justin Fields. Well, number one, all the starting jobs were gone. The only place left that I don't think we have a decent idea who the starting quarterback is going into the season, if it's not a rookie, is Denver, where they've got Jarrett Stidham right now, and he's probably the guy that steps in there. But the starting jobs were essentially gone. And then two, nobody else was commanding, regardless of where people had them graded coming out in the draft 2 or 3 years ago, nobody was commanding a high draft pick. And so the Bears could have, at that point, held on to him and waited until, into the offseason, until after the draft or during the draft. They could have taken it all the way up till camp and seen if there's an injury someplace else. Ryan Poles had also said he wanted to do right by Justin Fields, which if you're reading into that would probably mean don't hold him hostage through the entire offseason here. They decided to take the best that they could get, which was a 6th-round pick that potentially can go to a 4. But even when Justin Fields was acquired and before they had made that trade final, Mike Tomlin had reached out to Russell Wilson and made clear, you're still the starter. You're the guy. That's what I reported that night right after the Fields trade was done. I asked somebody very familiar with the dynamics there, is this a competition? And the response I got was, Russ is the starter. Now, does that mean that Russ is the starter in week 12 if the Steelers aren't winning? No, of course not. But going into the offseason, this is not duke it out, split the reps, alternate starts in the preseason. No, it's Russell Wilson is QB1. Justin Fields is QB2. I would certainly imagine, knowing how Arthur Smith thinks about offense, that he will try to design some things that maybe Justin Fields can do that Russell Wilson can't, packages, red zone stuff, whatever it might be. But for all the talk about Justin Fields and this idea that this was a controversial debate in Chicago, there was never really a debate here, Rich, not in an intensive way within the organization. You're talking about Justin Fields is going into year 4. The economics of that is going to change, or rebooting, resetting with a young quarterback at number 1 who's on a low money deal, and you can have extra resources to build around him. It's really institutionally a pretty easy choice. And now we'll just see over the next 35 days if everything stays on track and Caleb Williams ends up being probably the starter in week 1.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.